All right. And James, were you able to log into RealizeIt?
I have not. So I've lost my login information because I haven't used it. But there's no sense in holding everybody else up. I'll just keep scrambling until I come up with something.
And Jen,
I'll get you your login.
Okay. Okay, perfect. That's what I was gonna ask.
Yep, I'll work on getting you your login information while Joanne goes forward. So
that would be awesome. Thank you.
So, so the idea, what we're going to be doing then is how do we get, oops, now I timed out. Let me just, sorry about that. I was logged in too long. The idea is, how are we going to get to a final product where you have students going in, breaking things out in an objective? So the first thing, essentially, we're going to be doing is building, one second. There we go. Building this curriculum hierarchy. And essentially, your curriculum hierarchy is going to consist of all your learning concepts in them. So if you look at here, the idea what we're going to go through today is how do we get to this part here, the map. So from the end product is how do we get students to see this. We're going to go ahead and start all the way from the beginning. So that's the idea. So,
and I just want to take a brief second to mention that when we talk about a curriculum hierarchy, that represents a basket of concepts. And that basket of concepts can be an entire degree program. So imagine the nursing program is in a curriculum hierarchy. It could be an entire domain or vertical. So all of business, all of gen ed. It could be a course, which is very common that institutions create a separate curriculum hierarchy for each course in which the units or objectives are just grouped up and it's just that course. And frankly, it can be even smaller than that. So when we think about a curriculum hierarchy, we should think about it as sort of your workspace where you are organizing the stuff. And so, sorry, I'll stop talking, Joanne. Go ahead.
No, that is correct. Yeah, you're organizing this, the individual nodes and concepts. And then what you can do is using that, you can go ahead and pull using the individual nodes that you have, creating a collection of them and putting them into an objective and delivering those to the students. So that's the idea of it. So we'll go ahead and to create a new curriculum, you do have, once you get into the curriculum design dashboard, again, if just to recap, we came from curriculum design, curricula here, you'll land on this page. What you'll see on this page is, this is gonna be based on ownership and sharing. So anything that you see here is because it's been shared to an organization that you're in or to you individually. We'll go through some ownership and sharing briefly, but everybody, I believe on this call is in the Learning Design Specialist organization. So if you are creating a curriculum and it should be seen by your fellow colleagues, and you want them to have the ability to edit that curriculum, you would want to share it to them and give them full access. So if you see something on your curriculum dashboard here, it is because it was shared to you to be able to see that. So we'll go ahead and create a new curriculum.
James, if you see the chat linking at you, I've sent you your username and password.
Yeah, I do. So I guess you didn't see my email that said I'm already in, and I found it.
Oh.
So now it means I have to go back and redo my password.
Sorry about that. I did not see your email. I was working on.
No worries.
Okay.
Okay. The first thing you're going to go ahead and see is the main details. The only thing that you technically need on this side here is just to name your curriculum. So kind of the reference name for your domain of knowledge. It could be, if you're just doing a whole college algebra course, that could be named college algebra. So it's something that is meaningful. So it, for the so people will know what type of curriculum it is. Okay. In this instance here, a product can be automatically created for a new curriculum. You can have the system automatically create a product if you have it ticked. In most cases, you may be using this particular curriculum structure for multiple products. For an example, Annie has College Algebra Week 8 and Week 16. So those are different products within the curriculum. You may not want to go ahead and technically select that in this case, because this curriculum may be used for multiple different products, okay? The other thing you may want to go ahead and do is expand the more details. You are able to go ahead and put in a code for your curriculum. This can be the code for your actual course that the students sign up for. Whatever is identifying, it's very helpful when you do have, the list that we saw earlier, you may have quite a few curriculums. Sometimes it's easier just to go ahead and search for it by the code if you don't know the full name of the curriculum. So that's just FYI if you want to, it's not required. Okay.
It's not required by the system, but Annie or anybody, I don't know, hers may have a naming convention that you are supposed to be following, in which case, you know, we're sort of just telling you the system requirements. So please follow any internal requirements around naming and codes.
And they've been doing that with the HDX. So just so the team knows, same naming convention you've been doing, it would be the same for this. So we're good, Jen, but perfect.
And this is Anna Reese. And I am in the sandbox. I'm not in the live instance, and I don't get that option to do more attributes or sharing. Is that? Oh, okay. Michelle just said more. Okay, gotcha. I found it now. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. Okay, and then the next thing is ownership and sharing. Most of everybody that is on this call, and I can double check, is again part of the learning design specialist role. So automatic sharing has been set up. So you may not even have to come to this area, but it's always good to check. So ownership and sharing is where you provide the ability for other people to see your curriculum. So here you can go ahead and provide what organization that you want to share. So in most cases, it's going to be learning design specialist. And then if you leave this blank, no one else can see your curriculum, and it's only going to be accessible to you, so as you're the owner. The ability to share here is, in most cases, full access literally means that whoever you have it sharing to have full access to this entire curriculum, so they can edit, change, delete notes, delete the entire curriculum if need be. In most cases, you may not want to give someone full access. The next option best would be just to have the ability to change data. Change data gives them the ability to edit, move things around in your curriculum if need be, but it doesn't give them the ability to actually fully delete the curriculum by accident, okay? The other options here, view, of course, is just as it, what it means is the ability just to view. View all details would normally be what you would want to give if you don't want anybody to do anything in the course, editing, changing anything in the actual curriculum, but they can see the content, go into the nodes, look at the materials, but not actually save or do any edits. So that would be view all details. The other views kind of provide some more limits, but in this case, if you are doing some ownership and sharing within your colleagues, view all details allows people to just view the work and not make changes. Change data allows them to go ahead and do your edits, make edits, but not actually delete the entire curriculum. And full access is they can do whatever they want to the curriculum. Jen, can you make sure to just keep up with the chats?
Yeah, so Annie's just mentioning that in order to connect to Blackboard, they use view existence for the Herzing board. So
Correct. Yes. View existence, yes. For Blackboard, view existence would be, I believe, Annie, you give them Herzing view existence, the organization.
Yeah.
That allows them, again, that just allows them to select the product, because that's pretty much so Blackboard, you don't have to see anything other than the ability to select the product and what objectives to link to.
And the reason I just wanted to throw out there, Joanne, is if they're testing it by connecting it to Blackboard, if they don't do that, they can't see it from the Blackboard end. And so that's why I wanted to just make sure, because if they do want to actually do testing where they're connecting it to Blackboard, they have to give the Herzing organization that permission, or they won't get as employees through Blackboard.
Okay. And so there are some, so the ownership and sharing you are allowed to do it to an organization or a group. If you do need additional sharing, if you click on the additional sharing area here, it gives you more, so then you can do it by person, again, or by another organization. So if you have, in this case, learning design specialist here to change data, this is where then you can go ahead and add Herzing, and then access level of view existence, and then create sharing. Okay, any questions there?
Only one really quick, because I'm late to the game unless you're going to a different section. I've tried desperately to find this page and I can't. So could you give me the breadcrumb trail?
So next to your username here, this little hamburger button, just go ahead and click curriculum design. And then you should see curricula. And then from there,
okay, so hang on. So
no
I should see curricula where?
Yep. So curriculum design, and then you should see an option for curricula.
Aha, not alphabetical. Okay.
I can tell you that we do have a new design in for the authoring side, and the list is going to be alphabetical. I can tell you that.
Okay. And so then we are in.
So then let me go ahead. I'm going to just real quick here, oops. Let me go here. I may have not saved that, so it may have not been created. So you want, are you on this page?
I am.
Okay, so then click on create new curriculum.
So when I looked away, you clicked on a button called Create New Curriculum, which I have no idea where it is.
It should be at the bottom. So you went from.
Aha, got it. My page is very long.
Okay. So then Create New Curriculum. We want to go ahead and provide a name. So this is going to be your the name of your curriculum. So the domain of subject area where you're going to go ahead and create a course for, a curriculum for. So if you have something to use, go ahead and name that as needed. If not, you can use, you can follow exactly what I'm doing. Mine's just going to be Fundamentals of Management. I'm just using one of our test courses that we use.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, and then we just want to go ahead and unclick Create Product from Curriculum. Reason being is this then gives you the ability to use this curriculum for multiple different products, which we will get more into along the training. Okay. And then let me just, I didn't save the other one, so let me just do this real quick. I'm just going to add a code. Let me clear that out. Okay, and then what you want to do is just go ahead and click Save. And everybody should be landing now on the curriculum design. So if you had a code added, it will go ahead and populate on the very first node, the top, highest hierarchy, and then your name of your curriculum, okay? So now that we're on this page, a couple things here. You have the ability to move forth from hierarchy and prerequisite. These are different tabs. As we move into building the prerequisite network, we will go ahead and use that tab. Couple buttons at the bottom here. These are your zoom out, zoom in. So as you build, you may want to go ahead and shrink the page down a little bit to see everything that you're building. So those are your zoom out, zoom in buttons. One-to-one will bring everything into the actual screen. So this can't, once you build out your structure, if your structure is quite large, everything can look quite small. So I'm using zoom in and zoom out. And this is kind of just to zoom to fit to window, so as close as possible. And you can, okay. So the first thing we're gonna go ahead and do is go ahead and build out the hierarchy. A couple things with the nodes here. You're gonna go, when we're building out the hierarchy, you're gonna see two colors. You're gonna go ahead and see an orangey red color and a yellow color as we build out. So the first thing I wanna do is to add a new node, is just to go ahead and click on the first node that is shown on your screen, and then click on add new child item. That will go ahead and add a new node, okay? The idea here is if we look at, we want to build out first, what are the topics or modules that are going to be delivered to the students or objective. Jen, what terminology is being used or for the start?
For objectives?
Correct. Or units. Units, objectives?
Yeah, it's objectives, right,
Okay.
Annie?
Objectives?
Yeah, now I'm checking. Annie, you guys call it objectives, right?
We do it units. So we do it
Units.
Unit.
Unit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to make sure there's a lot of terminology for different.
Think of it as yeah, sorry guys. So, okay, so in any case, it's a bundle of learning is the best way to think about it. So it's a bundle. And you can have many layers here. If this were a program, if we were mapping out the full nursing program, you wouldn't be skipping straight to 8 units, right? You'd have some additional layers mixed in there. And there's a few different ways you could organize that. Again, this is your workspace. This isn't, you're going to carve out what students see and all of that. So you can organize how you need to organize. Generally speaking, though, as Annie said, for you guys, it's a unit, an objective, a module. It's a bundle of learning.
Okay. So right now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just kind of break this out into units. So the idea here is for this particular course, okay, there are 6 objectives. Right, yeah. So for this particular course that I'm gonna build out, there's technically 6 objectives. I'm gonna organize my map by these objectives. So I'm gonna have 6 units displayed out, and then within each unit, I'm gonna go ahead and break out each of the individual nodes that are gonna be, so those are the concepts, lessons that students are gonna see. So essentially, I'm gonna go ahead and then break it out into these individual, this map here, okay? So what I'm gonna first go ahead and do is my first technically my first unit that I wanna go ahead and teach in this fundamentals of management is introduction of management. So to name this new node, if you go into this panel here, this should automatically pop up. If it's not, it may be on the bottom, and you may just have to click on a gray box on the bottom. And then you can go ahead and name that. Okay. This is the only required. You can add a code, it's not required for each node, but you only need a name. there's going to be different things that you can go ahead and treat these. We will go ahead and go through those. One example would be a node can be not just a learning node, but you can create a node for just to be a submission node. So we can go ahead and go through that shortly. But once you name your node, just go ahead and save. So that will go ahead and name it. Now I want to just go ahead and add 5 more of these nodes just to organize my units here. So if I go back to the very top, if I click 5 more times, that might be the fastest, and then it'll go ahead and create those, and then I can name them. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly name them. If you guys are working on your course, you can go ahead and do this as well. Any questions there while I'm just quickly naming these?
Okay, I'm just confused. So this is considered our units?
Yes. We're naming the units.
Okay.
In this course, there are 6. Yours might have 8. We are naming the units. So we have Management 101, Fundamentals of Management. It contains 8 objectives or units, 6, excuse me. And then the next step will be all of the activities or lessons that fall under each unit. That'll be next. Again, if this were a program, this level might contain something more high level, right? If this were the full nursing program, it probably wouldn't be units. It might be courses. And then under each course, you might have the units, and under the units, you might have the lessons. So there's multiple ways to think about the curriculum hierarchy. It's essentially your workspace where you are organizing the material and the learning. So here we have your units.
So Michelle, another way to think about it is a folder. So this is the largest folder, and you're naming it at the week or the unit level, and then you're going to work on a hierarchy of subfolders, which comes next. So this is the highest level today that you're looking at if you were thinking of organizing it by a folder.
Perfect. Thank you. That's what I needed.
Yep.
And what we're going to be doing is each of us has a folder we're taking care of, right? Today?
Yep. So for the hands-on piece, each person has a unit for a course, Jen, just to give you the heads up. So for example, James has unit 1. So his representation for the course would be one of the folders for.
So that's cool, but I think, so thanks for letting us know that. But since you're working individually in separate curricula, it probably would be wise to go ahead and just build out the additional few units so that when you look back at this later, you remember what it was. So you'll end up only actually building out one of these boxes with lessons underneath it and content and all of that. So it's up to you all. If it helps to go ahead and just create the additional boxes for each unit so that you remember how the levels work, and you can just name them unit 2, unit 3, whatever. If you don't need to do that, then that's fine. You may right now only have one blue box and one yellow box. And then underneath that, you'll have your content. However you all want to do it for this training is fine. So considering that part of the purpose of these sessions is to help you create additional training materials for future LDS training and onboarding, however you want to, go through the steps is totally, totally up to you, as long as you're following along.
Okay. So I purposely added an extra node, so I don't need that. If you ever need to delete a node, you can go ahead and highlight it. And just here's that delete button here. And that will go ahead and delete that node. Okay. If you don't need it. One thing to do to note is as I'm building right now, I'm just building out my curricula, and it's fine to go ahead and delete that node because there's nothing in it. There's students hasn't actually worked through the nodes. When you actually have content in there or a node has already been delivered to students in the past, that's where we may not want to delete. You may want to just move a node to an area where they're not being delivered. Okay, so just move them out of an objective, but we'll go through that. Just an FYI, don't willy-nilly just, once you have a curriculum and it's already been delivered a few times, just let's go ahead and check before we kind of delete nodes, okay? Okay, so the next thing I want to go ahead and do is the first thing I want to go now break these each of these units into its most granular pieces of content. So what are the concepts? What are the topics our students are going to go through and learn? So the idea here is each one you want to go ahead and break out. These are kind of maybe your weekly or the activities in those units. Okay. So in this case here, what I'm going to go ahead and do is kind of build, break out Unit 1, Introduction to Management, into some of these nodes here. I'm not going to do them all. I think I'm going to just do the first 5. So if you go ahead and click on your first unit, and however many activities for that unit you are going to need, go ahead and click the new child, this option here, that many times. I'm going to do.
When you say activities, are you talking about nodes?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So you'll notice one thing here is now the hierarchy, so this highest level has now turned to this orange color, and everything underneath it is yellow. That's always going to happen. So as you build out, the levels that are not going to, the levels that are only for you to see and for kind of your organizational purposes is going to be orange. What students eventually will see and get delivered to students are what is going to be in color is in yellow. Okay, these are the items that will eventually then have an authoring file on it, so where you put in the content. Okay. So here again, all I'm just going to do is go ahead and name the name those nodes. Let me know if anybody gets stuck. Okay. Yep. And this is going to be dependent to you as the designer. You can build out your entire structure. So after I finish with my first one here, I can go ahead and then move on to the second one and then continue to build. That's up to you, or you can build one unit at a time, literally meaning building the first unit and then adding content in. So that's kind of, that would be up to you there. So again, a couple options here. You will notice that you can expand and unexpand. Another option is also on the panel here. This will also do your expand. This may become a lot easier when you are looking, when you do have your structure built out, it may be easier to look at it in the list form. These, again, folders, you can expand and unexpand them, okay?
Hey, I'd like to ask a Herzing question. So
Yeah.
what is our naming convention for these units and then the topics, the nodes underneath?
So the naming convention that we've been using for the units is simply unit, the number, colon, and then whatever the title of the unit is. And then the subfolders are actually the title of the content the student's engaging with, because that is what they will actually see on their end. So I believe in the documents we have the titles as a 3 to 5 word title for the topic, and that's what we're using in those folders.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yep. A couple of things you may or may not know as well. Once your curriculum is fairly large, how do you easily find certain nodes? you do have a search function here. So if you click on the search function, enter in key phrases for the nodes, couple words, it will go ahead and pull, find those for you, and then you can go ahead and to go to that particular node, just click on select here, and it will just bring you to that node. So that's very helpful in the instance where it is, you do have a fairly large structure to find nodes. So what we can go, you can go ahead and continue to build. I'm only going to build out this one here. But again, like Jen said, if you are thinking about like program level, you can build another, again, a structure here. So if this was maybe my management curriculum, but I'm going to be breaking out management into management 101, management 202, so forth, you can add another layer. And then what you can go ahead and do is then also then drag and drop. And if you select, so this is all up to you. You can, if you do a select, you can do a massive drag and drop as well. Oh, this is not dragging and dropping for me right now. And then these can, this can be your, you know, your first management 101 and then move on forth. So it's kind of your structure, again, like Jen said, is what you want it, however you want it to be, just to organize your work area. So I'm just gonna undo that. So move that back and just delete that. Okay, what the next thing I want to go ahead and do is now just pop over to how prerequisite networks can be built out. So this is your this is just your hierarchy, your top level, and then your individual lower levels. Anything in yellow is going to end up being where content is placed in. Eventually, when we built this out here, this is also going to be red, and then it's little individual nodes. So what we'll go ahead and do is just hop over to the hierarchy prerequisite network and show you how to just make prerequisite networks and couple functions there. So if you click on your prerequisite tab there, what we want to do is, I've only built out my first unit, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on my first unit here, and it's going to go ahead and display all the individual nodes that have been broken out. So the idea of prerequisite is we want to think about prerequisite in a way that it ensures that students, we want to build a map, a pathway for students of the knowledge domain, but we want to ensure that it's not thinking of like students read chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4. It may not be that linear. We want to make sure that the concepts are related to one another, that students do need to understand this before they move on to another concept. Okay, so that's how we want to think of the prerequisite kind of network, okay?
So you may find that when you're designing a course and working with a subject matter expert, it makes sense to wait and do the prerequisite network toward the end of the development. And the reason for that is as you go about creating and bringing content into your lessons, you may have discussions with the SME around the level of granularity. You know, so it may seem like they have, for example, 8 activities or something to go with this unit, but then as you start to, bring content in and everything, you may look at it and say, actually, this one needs to be broken out further, or this is too granular. So rather than creating a whole bunch of work, it makes a lot of sense to wait until you feel fairly confident that you've got the units nailed down and the lessons within each unit nailed down and everybody's comfortable with it, and then start to have that conversation about, okay, is there anything what do I need to learn first in order to understand this unit? And then, as Joanne said, understanding, you can work it backwards, and I think we talked about that on the last call, right? Ultimately, in this unit, what's kind of the last concept you're going to need to master, and what do you need to know before that? And what do you need to know before that? And so sometimes one concept may be prerequisite to 2 or 3. And that's Joanne's point about really just avoid thinking about this in terms of sequence and really think about it in terms of prerequisite knowledge in order to build up to the next topic. Any questions about that? We can circle back and we can talk more about prerequisite networks, but I just want to make sure everybody gets the difference and that it's really not about sequencing. And the reason it's important is because the system will use what it knows about how you're performing in a given topic, and that'll influence how it thinks you understand previous topics that were prerequisite, right? So it will understand if you've begun to have a knowledge slip on something that you've learned previously. So it's really important that it not be about, you know, sequence per se, but about learning.
Okay. So to create networks here, it's literally a drag and drop, and then I'll just show you a couple of things if you need to ever delete links or anything like that. So to create an actual link, you want to go ahead and first take the prerequisite and then drop it to the actual postrequisite. In my example, I'm literally gonna just go ahead and create Introduction to Management is going to be a prerequisite. So students need to know Introduction to Management before they move to Executive Department's management sheets. So it's kind of just a drag and drop. You'll notice that a link has been created. Next, what are the postrequisites for Executive Department Management? Well, I'm going to say that in this case, all 3 of these, in order for them to go, before they can understand these 3 concepts, they're going to have to go through Executive Departments of Management sheets. So then I'm just going to go ahead and create that. This is also a prerequisite to the independent research, and just dragging and dropping there. Okay, so with my 5, so this again, I've only broken it out to 5 nodes. So right now, my initial map is going to go ahead and look like this. Okay, there may be cases where you know, who are managers, maybe this is a prerequisite to this, and you can go ahead and create a link to that as well. So again, this is just thinking of what Jen said, how are these concepts related to each other, what is required to understand before moving to another concept. If you need to delete a link, just go ahead and click on the link. It's going to turn blue, and you can go ahead and delete it there. Okay. And then you can go ahead and drag and drop as needed.
I think it's worth mentioning, and you're probably seeing this if you look at some existing courses, it's possibly even true in things you're working on now. But, you know, there are sometimes what we call like freestanding nodes, right? So like sometimes it's something you need to do it, but it doesn't really scaffold up. And knowing about that doesn't indicate you're gonna know anything else, and knowing the other stuff doesn't indicate you knew about that. It's just sort of a thing. And that's, you know, common. Let's say you've got a lesson on just some terminology or something like that, right? So it's fine. It's fine to have some freestanding nodes. You're not, you want to, I guess, limit that, right? Because if they're all freestanding, then it's not really adaptive anymore. There's nothing, the system is not, you know, looking for connections and looking for how the evidence is being applied and that kind of thing. Now you're talking more sort of like HDX. And in fact, that's, you know, again, worth noting, that's how we arrived at providing HDX to Herzing last summer, even though it hadn't been released yet, is because there was a course that really the learning wasn't scaffolding. It was some discrete lessons that needed to be learned. And it was difficult to, you know, conceptualize how to build it all together. So I feel like there probably are questions about the prerequisite map and what it does and what the results are in terms of the student experience. So I just want to make sure you guys have time to ask those questions before we move on. And we can come back later, but just.
And once it goes live to the students, this is how the students will see the map. But this is also, as the students work through the content, this is how the system identifies where they where they have to move to next. So if they're not doing very well in who are managers, the system will give them the recommendation to go ahead and move back and learn this concept here. So you do need to think about these network connections, because the remediation, this is how the system determines where the remediation should come from as the students move along.
Joanne, sorry, I should have asked you about this before the call, but it just occurred to me. And if you don't think this is the right time, we'll just skip it for now. But is it worth showing how you can create prerequisites across concepts in different curricula? Oh, you need to plug in your computer.
Yeah, let me just, I can go ahead and do that. I can just double check.
Because I know like when her thing started, creating all this, every course was, oh, hold on one second.
I think we may have lost Jen. I'm just getting my computer plug here.
Sorry about that. What I was going to say is, right now we have a lot of curricula that are in separate, well, we have a lot of things that are in sort of one curriculum hierarchy per course. So not that anybody has this extra time right now, but if you got to a point where you said, we want to go back and put some connections in the system. And so over here we have, I don't know, English one whatever, and over here we have English 200 and whatever, and they were created separately, but there are some things that are tied together, and we want to enable the system to bring in concepts to help students remediate if they've had a slip in their knowledge. You can do that without starting all over. You don't have to create a whole new curriculum for quote unquote English. There's a way that Joanne will show when she's plugged in to connect concepts that are in different curricula. And another place that could come up is, for example, let's say you have a unit on creating or a lesson on creating a good research paper or good thesis, and there's some key concepts in there. And then let's say further on in a student's program, there are specific places where they're going to be asked to use that knowledge, but it's been a while since they took that class. We can make a connection here so that the system can bring in some information from that previous lesson. So hopefully that's making sense, and when Joanne's able to plug in, she'll show that.
Okay, I am back. I'm so sorry about that. I didn't move fast enough for my computer. Is everybody able to hear me? Okay.
Yep, you're here. You're all good.
Okay,
we see you and hear you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what Jen was talking about, I believe I can go ahead and show you. I don't have it ready, but you have a Add View button here. So this allows you to bring in other curriculums into this, the dashboard. So if you go ahead and click on Add View, you can go ahead and select which curriculum you want to go ahead and bring into view. So whichever where you want to make those connections. I'm gonna let me just go ahead and I'll just do training session 1 here because actually that's not gonna work. I'll just do, this is my test environment.
That's okay. This is really unfair because I didn't prep Joanne for this, so we don't have to actually do it in any way. You guys are a lot of you are in the live environment, or you may be in the sandbox where there is something you can choose. So that's something you can play with, and we can revisit it in another session and actually plan one out so that you can see how that works. But are there any questions about that conceptually?
So Joanne, basically what you're saying then is, let's say you have the course I can see here, and you brought in another course, like you see the graphic key. So when you're looking at your prerequisites, now you have options for both courses, so you can drag across the two courses to make connections. So that's the idea behind it.
Yep, correct. So, so in the hierarchy, you would see that there. You're not seeing it in the prerequisite view because I have to click it. So if you scroll down, there's my graphic key, and there's the node. There was only one. Now I can go ahead and drag to make that connection. You'll notice that it's going to show green because it's just identifying that that is from a different curriculum. So that's the idea. But we can go. I can go ahead and show you more detail and show you how that kind of translates in the live and how it looks to students when that happens as well.
Thanks, Joanne. We'll come back to it. I appreciate you taking a little sidebar there. I was thinking about it. Great, thank you.
Okay. So do we have any questions? Because that's building out a prerequisite. We don't want to beat a dead horse. It's, the idea here, it's the technical of building out prerequisites of dragging and dropping is very simple. There's a few steps. But the conceptual and thinking about, that's where you have to sit with your SMEs and work through those conversations. So any questions so far of what we've gone through with building out a hierarchy and prerequisites?
So, so this is Anna, and I'm trying to see if I've got the figures straight. So we've got nodes. You have a curriculum will have several nodes, but a product will have several curricula.
So a curriculum is going to be your structure. So how Jen described it, it's going to be, your structure. It's going to have your nodes that are going to be, that students will need to learn for that particular domain. We haven't gone to creating products, but you can, from one curriculum, you can create multiple products, because what goes into a product are those individual objectives that we end up creating out of this structure.
So Anna, a product.
Go ahead.
A product in RealizeIt is what the person consumes and interacts with. So a product, typically at Herzing, a product is a course, and that course could be carved out and packaged up to be delivered to a student from a curriculum hierarchy that contains enough material for 10 courses. Okay, so in a future session, we'll talk about how to carve out products. But as Joanne was saying, take, for example, the idea of competency-based education. So we could carve a product out of just introduction to management and serve that to students. And yet also from this same curriculum hierarchy, we could carve out a product that contains all 6, or what does she have on there, 5 of those units: intro to management, plan, organize, all that. And we could call that Management 101, a 3-credit-hour course. So within the curriculum hierarchy, we're organizing concepts, and then later we will determine what product do we want to serve up to students. So this is almost the pantry, and later we'll decide how to bring these ingredients together and what goes on the plate that goes in front of a student.
Gotcha. So,
in
whenever we're
Herzing's
doing
case,
this, we can understand the context that we're in at the time, whether at a program or gotcha.
So that's right. That's right. And up to now, it's been very common that it's a one-to-one. It's just, and that's very common. You do have some examples at Herzing where a curriculum hierarchy was used to create more than one end product or course, okay? And that could even be expanded in the future. So hopefully that makes sense now.
Okay, yeah,
And
thanks.
the reason we always say product instead of course is because they're not always courses. Sometimes they're just modules that are delivered. You know, sometimes they're competency-based. Sometimes they're just placement tests, or, you know, so a product could be defined as lots of different things in terms of like an academic terminology, but it's the thing that a student ends up interacting with.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Well, Joanne, this is Linda.
Hi, Linda.
So a curriculum, is a curriculum a collection of courses or products? So what you're creating right here is a curriculum, so that's not what we should be working on with the examples we have, because we're working on units in a course.
So that unit belongs to part of a curriculum.
Yeah.
You just happen to only have a piece of it, but it does belong to something bigger.
Right. But you're working on right now, what you're doing is the higher level that we shouldn't be doing, that we shouldn't be working on our example with this.
So Linda, what you guys will be doing is you guys will be each working on individual pieces that will then merge together into one final curriculum. So you guys have pieces, but what she's talking about today is don't think about the project so much you have where you each have a piece. Think about holistically, you're getting ready to work on a course, and that's where you want your head to be for this piece of it, because that's how they're presenting it. If you were to build out, 6 weeks of content, those are your 6 folders and then your subfolders. Your piece is the smaller part, and I think that's causing some confusion.
Yeah.
So what I would say is think bigger picture now, and then know when we get to your piece that you have a puzzle piece that is part of the big picture. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yep, and no matter what you're doing, you always still have to have a curriculum hierarchy because it's how you get your stuff organized. So, it's totally fine. Your blue box might just say Unit 3.
For now.
And then you might, and you might just have, exactly, for now. And you might just have one level underneath that. That's totally cool. You still need some kind of curriculum hierarchy because you need a place to put your stuff. Does that help, Linda? Any of that? Any of the above? Okay.
That's good. Thank you so much.
Okay. The next thing we're going to go over through is building out competencies and attributes. Jen, do you want to introduce this area in the context of HERSing before I show how to do it? Or
no. Let's just start talking about it in general and then
okay.
see where we go.
Okay. So this is a piece that Jen wanted me to cover. So this is a layer in addition to building out your course that you can go ahead and assign competency. So in the matter of thinking of like business management, there are probably maybe competency. So all the individual items the students will need to learn to understand fundamentals of management. Maybe you want to tie them to some competency, maybe management, like some of these areas that students are learning coincide to management or
yeah, sorry, Karen. Yeah, so I will jump in. And Annie is chatting up a couple things. So there's a few examples where this comes in. You can tie and map what's in your curriculum hierarchy to a few different things. It could be course level outcomes, it could be program level outcomes, it could be programmatic accreditation concepts. It could be, if you think about nursing, it could be NCLEX standards or concepts. It could be, we work with an institution that maps everything out to specific job outcomes because they train high school students to work in trades. So we're going to show this to you today so that you understand it because it's important and it is something that you can use in a few different ways. And then this is probably something that we will circle back to when it comes up, for you. And we'll be able to review it at that point. But just wanted you to get the understanding of what RealizeIt can do. Because what it means is that, for example, you can have a student in, say, a nursing course, And they could be seeing not only how they're performing on that, 3 credit hour course or whatever, and how they're progressing toward a grade, but it could show them also how they are tracking to specific outcomes related to an external framework. So, a certain licensure, for example, right? So that you can be tracking toward a couple of different things. And what that does is it allows both the institution and the student to understand how students are progressing toward bigger picture outcomes and goals, not just how am I doing in this course, which is great to know, but how am I doing in this course and how does that feed into how I'm doing toward this other benchmark that I'm trying to achieve that may be a longer term thing. So I'll let Joanne walk through it a little bit, and then we can discuss maybe your ideas about how you would use it.
Yep. So what I'm just going to go ahead and do is one, how you can create these competency attributes in this curriculum, and then it is then automatically associated to the curriculum. Also, you can pull in other competencies from maybe other that you've built in other curriculums and use them in your current curriculum as well. So first one I'm just going to show you is how to create a competency set. So this is your product area here, panel. We'll go through a lot on these along the training, but the first one we're gonna go ahead and do is attribute sets here. If you click on it, this is the kind of competency attribute panel. So to create one for this curriculum, you can go ahead and click on create. Again, everything in a system can have a code and a name. Only a name is required, a code is not. So in this case, very simple. I'm just gonna go ahead for an example. This is just gonna be named competency. I'm just gonna build out my kind of the sets. Competency for management, okay? And the type is competency, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and click OK. That creates kind of the folder for, so these are gonna be competencies for management. What are the competencies in management do I want to go ahead and assess the students on? So here, now you have that folder. Now we're gonna create the subfolder, create the attributes. So then what is my first one? The first one I may want for this competency maybe be, let's see, business ethics. So maybe some of ethics. Again, code needed. Just a name is needed, okay? And then, so then another one for competency of management, maybe reporting and analytics for management. Okay. And then, so you can have as many competencies at, within the set as needed. So you would just go ahead and keep creating. So the next thing I want to do is what are the individual items that I want to, that are going to be measured with those sets that I've, with these competencies that I have created. So how do I associate, each of these nodes? So let's say I want for reporting analytics, well, let's go ahead and management sheets are probably going to be one of them, and maybe independent research is going to be associated to reporting analytics. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and select. And if I hold down, if you select a node, if you hold down the shift key and then click on it again, it's going to select the next node. Now I can just go ahead and click on add. And what you'll know is the attribute has been associated to these elements. So now the system is saying that when students are going and learning through these two nodes here, it's also going to contribute to the my competencies for reporting analytics.
So imagine that you did this in each course within the business program. You have a set of a handful of attributes, and again, whether those are internal, for example, programmatic outcomes, or let's say you had a CBSP accreditation and you were tracking to a set of competencies based on those standards. So that means that within each course, a student is going to be, of course, learning the course outcomes that you've worked with the SME, you've designed the course, and they're doing all that learning. And then different activities, different bits and pieces, different assignments even are going to be mapped. And when I say assignments, I guess I kind of mean submission nodes, so we'll leave that. But those are going to be mapped to these competencies. So then it provides you the ability, again, as the student progresses throughout the course or the program, to understand how they're performing, not just toward graduation, not just in terms of GPA, et cetera, but in terms of their mastery and their progress against these competencies. Any questions about that? This is something we will definitely be making use of in the nursing program, James.
And this is Anna. I've got one question. What if you have one node that addresses multiple attributes?
And yep, and that's totally fine. So what you can go ahead and do, that was the next thing I want. So let's say this node here also pertains to, for example, business ethics. Then I can go ahead and select it and just go ahead and click add. So that's not, so multiple nodes can be associated to however many attributes that is needed. You'll notice that it now has two colors. That's showing that it has multiple. So each, technically, as you keep adding each of these competencies, when you'll see it in the nodes, like the different colors, those are just based on the filters.
And yes, this is Harriet. We will be, we don't call them competencies, we call them our objectives, but yes, we'll be using those in the nursing program.
Okay, and you are able to go ahead and associate more than one objective, as Harriet said, associate more than one. So if you have multiple objectives that need to be placed into the curriculum, you can add additional attributes as well. Like I said before, you can add ones that have already been existing, that have been already created, because as you create these in the curriculum, they're also saved in the attributes areas that can then be reused as well. So in this example here, I showed you that you can create a new one by just placing a name, but you also have an option here, select existing attribute sets, and then whatever is available to you, those will be in line here. So this is an example of one I can just go ahead and reuse. And if I click OK, now this has been placed in my attribute area here. So in this case, this example has quite a few. You'll notice, oops, sorry, this just keeps.
Hey, just so I understand, so what other attributes other than competencies can we assign? And what does that, is that just like metadata, meta information, or is that something else? Does it affect it some other way?
James, for us, that's going to be the objectives.
Right. But they're saying competencies and attributes, and I don't think those terms are interchangeable. I think there's more than. I think there's I think I saw a drop-down menu that showed that there were more attributes than just competencies.
Well, attributes can be used for other things, but right now we're kind of not going there. Typically, they were because they were designed for this. They were designed for this. We've had to kind of repurpose for some other reasons, but I'm not sure if I'm getting at your question here. Now, Harriet, when you say it's going to be for the objectives, do you mean the program objectives?
Well, we have program level objectives and we have course level objectives that are all tied to, like for nursing, to these standards.
Right. Okay.
So essentially these, how you map them out, everything is all reportable back. So these can be viewable by the students. So in the case where so students are going to be able to see, the lessons that they have to go through. Well, it's timed out again. But there's also a tab, if you make it viewable to students, they can also track how well they're doing against each of those course level objectives as well. So that can be, students can view those, or you cannot have them view them, but as a designer and for the overall, administration, you can go ahead and report off of those as well.
So another example is, let's say there were a collection of courses within your curriculum that maybe together as a collection cover something that is also required for a certification. Let's just say you had a series of project management courses and there are lessons and things sprinkled throughout those that together make up a collection of like a PMP. So you would be able to track that here. So a student would understand, and the institution would understand from a data perspective, James, how is a student doing, not just in these courses, not just in their, project management degree program, but why are they doing these things, right? And that it's tracking toward, for example, a certification. Now, it sounds like we're going to use them just to track, course and programmatic outcomes. I know we've had some conversations about helping make sure students are ready for NCLEX, and so in my head, I'm thinking there may be an application here, but we'll know when we get kind of deeper into the design there around, which things prepare students specifically for certain parts of NCLEX. So I don't know, it may not turn out to be the way it is, but I just wanted to make sure we introduced the concept of attributes and competencies today, and I think it's something we'll delve into more fully in the design process.
Oh, I'm sure we will, Jen. And when I said to our standards, the standards I'm talking about are the NCLEX standards and the Board of Nursing standards. Okay. So we design our program outcomes from those, and from those we design our course objectives. So everything
got it.
filters up.
Okay, so that was the piece I was missing. So you and I are totally on the same page. So
yes,
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and we'll want to do all that mapping.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we just wanted to go ahead and introduce those things for you today. Just another thing here is you'll notice this is a filter. So as you build out the course, as you build out this curriculum, this filter will grow because we added competency. We created those competencies here. There's a filter for now competencies, but once we actually create those learning maps, you'll have a filter for that as well. But this is essentially where you can go ahead and filters, and each color corresponds to whatever filters you have turned on. So in this case, I just changed it to the element type. So that's kind of goes along the lines of the hierarchy where you see the orange and then the yellow boxes and so forth. So we'll continue to kind of go back to these filters as we kind of build out this example course, okay? Just so you know that that's there as well. Okay, is there any other questions regarding hierarchy, prerequisites, and attributes? Because the next thing we're gonna go ahead and start on is get you familiarized with some of the authoring. So I am aware that you guys work off of templates for HDX. We do have a template for this type of curriculum building to put in content as well. That's what we're gonna go through right now today. We're looking at that kind of template macro. On the next session, we're going to go kind of deep down more into the authoring side, building out maybe submission nodes, going through some of the items that you may not be familiar with the authoring, because we do have some things that we can go ahead and show you that you may have not seen before in authoring. So that will be the next session. But just before we go into just doing the content ingestion for this particular type of curriculum. Do you have any questions before I get into that? Or do we need a 5-minute break? Because there was a lot of information.
You guys still there?
Too much.
We all took our 5-minute break unauthorized, I guess.
So if you, I can continue. Like I said, if you need a 5-minute break that's fine, but otherwise I can continue.
I'm happy to take a break.
So, Jen, are we just okay just to go ahead and take maybe just a 5-minute and come back?
Yeah, I'm going to pause the recording and then we'll come back in 5. Is everybody fine with that? Okay. Okay, we're going to come back in 5.
All right. Okay. So the next item we're going to go through, like I said, is there's multiple different ways to get your actual content, images, videos into a node. One way that you guys have been very familiar with is doing in a template format. So HDX has its own template, and adaptive learning also has its own template. So this, the first thing we're just going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to walk you through the template, and you may be very familiar with it using past templates, and then just kind of adjusting that and showing you how it looks, and then maybe doing a couple edits and tweaks and things like that.
And just so everybody doesn't get confused, this is the macro-enabled template that I had provided previously, but since we don't know if anybody's used it, not used it, we're gonna go from there. Okay, so it's not a new, like brand new yesterday thing.
Okay. So what Jen sent you, you can go, if you have it, great. If not, we can definitely send it to you. So everything is a macro, it's macros enabled, so similar to HDX, or if you've seen this template, if you go ahead and click here, the instructions will go ahead and pull up. So everything is built out. This can be fine-tuned and tweaked based on your needs. And so if there's something that is currently missing, talk to Jen and we can look at getting it added. So, but this is a base template of what we believe would works for this type of content creation, okay? So again, it has your sections, your headings, subheadings. You are able to add images. This new version of RealizeIt authoring, you do have the ability to add a background image to the content. In the past, you weren't able to, so it was kind of just a white background. Now you can add in a background. You're still able to add videos. You can provide glossaries, pop-ups, quotes. We also made it simpler to go ahead and create questions into the system as well. So there is a question section here for you as well. And then in the end here, you can validate everything, of course, to make sure that the document is okay and that there's nothing missing or there's no errors that it's going to pop up before you ingest. Okay, so right now I'm just going to walk you through how some of these templates, what functions you can do here. So it's very simple that you can go ahead. First, you want to select the section. So those sections, again, are when you look at the authoring, it's where you see the introduction learning example. So all the different types of sections you have, essentially that's what this is. You can go ahead and click introduction. Okay. Go ahead and provide a name. So this will be seen on the side panel, which we'll see once we ingest. Okay, and then enter. So everything in red, you leave alone. Next to it, you fill in. Same thing with past. So and then you can go ahead and let's see if you want to add a background image here. We'll go ahead and then, so again, everything in red, leave alone. And then there's boxes where you can fill in. So nothing very similar to like I said, the HDX if you've used it. Where's my pictures? I probably have a picture I can use. Let's see, housing training.
Hey, this is James. Sorry to interrupt. So this is among the documents that Jen sent us this morning?
A long time ago. Was it in the documents you sent this morning too, Joanne? I have to look.
I believe so.
Yes, it's called template.
There might be a sample template that you can ingest. I may
I'll send
not.
it.
So I have
right
template. I have template ingest training Herzing that is a PDF.
Yeah. It's not in the email from this morning, James. I had sent it a long time ago, like months ago, so let me just send it again.
Okay. So here we're adding a background image. So you simply select, from Word, insert an image. You pull that image in. It's gonna provide the source, and then it wants an alt text. So this is what students see when they hover over the image. So now you can go ahead and add in your content. Oops, not in red. Oops, me. You can go ahead and add in your introduction, content, and so forth. And then if you want to go ahead now, add another section, again, just go section, learning 1, add the content in, and so forth. I do have a finished product, so we can look at that. For questions, you want to, so if you're ready to go ahead and provide, your assessment questions, multiple choice, enter answer, and so forth, again, go ahead and select this. You want to first create the question section, name them as needed.
And Joanne, just to mention, for the question piece, that's identical to HDX,
Yep.
right? There are no differences. Just let the team know, because most of them have built questions. Yep. So question option identical to what you've done in HDX. The other piece may differ.
Yes, exactly. So this hasn't changed. So essentially, this template was created because, in using HDX as a reference. There were certain things that we are able to pull in for adaptive learning. So the template is going to be very similar. So if you view, like I said, if you use the HDX, you're going to know how to go ahead and use this one as well. Okay. So just select your questions. And after that, with everything, you want to go ahead and validate and make sure you have no errors. If there are errors, to go ahead and fix that. I believe Jen may have sent you this. There is an example that you can ingest, and we can go through the ingestion. So here's an example that Jen may have sent that I kind of created just for this example here. Again, I'm going to go ahead and pull in here is an introduction section. In the introduction section, it's going to be a background image, so you can go ahead and see how that looks. Some content, there's some learning, and then I did a pop-up so you can kind of see how that looks, put in an image, and then entered 3 questions here. So that's essentially what we're going to go ahead and pull in. Okay.
Does everybody have that? Now that was from the email this morning. It was a completed template, not a blank one. I've just sent, and I think Annie also just sent the blank template, which is a .dotm file. In this case, what happens is when you use the template, as most of you I think know, you create it, you save it as a docx, and then you can ingest it. So this is a completed one that Joanne's already done, since we didn't think the team really needed to spend a lot of time on how to use a template. But certainly if anybody does need or has any questions or has run into anything in trying to use this template, let us know, and we can talk through that.
Hey, and Jen, just a word of advice. It says different than the HDX, so make sure you name them and keep them separate. It's pretty easy to tell the difference, but you definitely want to make sure that you know which template you're working in for each course, because they are different.
Yeah, so they are not interchangeable. Thanks.
Oh, so they are not, so like if we have content that's already developed in HDX template, we can't ingest it into an APL?
No, you'll need to just paste it over.
And the reason with that is, Anna, is like the tabs aren't the same. Those like tabbed interfaces or some of those functionalities aren't available in APL. And so it wouldn't ingest correctly anyway.
Well,
so you'll have to reformat.
Each template. So what we've done is we've given you a macro-enabled Word document to create, but then on the back end in RealizeIt, there's an actual ingestion template we've put on your instance, and those two macro-enabled Word documents don't work with the same template. So that's the technical reason why, and as Annie said, the reason they're separate to begin with is they don't have the same functionality.
Yeah, so exactly. The directions are different. Each one, I didn't share one of them to my user, but in the system, in the administrator will have access to this. In the system, each template has instructions that have been tied to them. So that's why the templates aren't interchangeable, because there's different instructions to do for it to do certain things, to read each of those tags differently. Okay, so going back to, if you want to ingest, and I believe I shared everything to you guys, so you guys should be able to, and hopefully this works live. I've tested this out and it's worked, so hopefully it works live here. Okay, so to put an authoring file on a node, we're gonna be ingesting, but if you needed to put an authoring file on a node, essentially all you need to do is select the node, and you do have this pen icon here. If you click on it, it creates an authoring file. It brings you to the authoring dashboard, where then you can go ahead and create. We're gonna get more into this the next session. And then how do you know a node has a file in it is with this pen icon here, okay? What we're gonna do right now is ingest that template that I've created. So if I click on it, you have this import structure contents here. What you wanna do is go ahead and select the file. Okay, once you select the file, you have to provide a process for it. So again, you will see an HDX process, you will see this process, and we can name those for you so you can identify. But this is where you're going to have to select what instructions, you have to tell the system how to read this in. So it's kind of the instructions to read it in. In this case, you should see something that says Design Doc to Standard UI V12. You should see this. This is what you want to select. Okay. And then ingest. You see there's a pen icon there. So it was ingested, and I do have, so everything that has been in my file, let me pull that back up, has now been pulled in. So like I said, I had an introduction section, a learning section, and a question section. I named my question section Test My Knowledge. So those are there. So this is just a preview. This is the raw. But if you take a preview here, the file up here, this will show you how a student would see it. So I told the system to provide a background on that macro document. So this is the background. So when there is a background, the content is shown in a box, like so. And that's where the content is. What you'll notice is that my next section doesn't have a background, but this box still shows. So you want to make it consistent. So if you're going to use backgrounds, you're going to have to use backgrounds for all the sections, or should. So if you notice, that background is, I didn't specify a background for this section, but that box is still there because there is a background specified for the first introduction. So here. Is
there a way to import that or select it, or is it code that goes in the? The template?
You would go in, it's in the template. So in the template, you would select background image, and then you'll get this box.
And we put the actual image in there at the size and the resolution we want it.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I did, like I said earlier, I said there was a pop-up. This is what a pop-up would look like. So essentially that pop-up here is, I initially, what I would have done was selected. So I would have selected my, let's see here, like selected my term or where I want my pop-up to appear, and then select pop-up. And then what happens is it places the pop-up information where you can go ahead and then fill in. So again, you only fill in what's in the white area. So for my pop-up, I wanted this statement to be shown to students. Okay. There. So that's how the pop-up looks like there. Typical image. Again, you can provide a video, and all you would need to provide is the embedded code for the video or the URL for the video, and then that would be a video instead. For the question section here, again, we've gone ahead and created from the template some enter-answer multiple choice questions. Again, that has been no change to what you guys have been creating for HDX. So now the questions appear like so here. Okay.
Just one question or one mention, Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
So I just got a message, and this was a really valid point. So when they create a curriculum, we have to tell the system the delivery method, right? Whether it's HDX or APL. And if you don't select the correct delivery method, these templates won't ingest correctly.
You shouldn't have to select a delivery method or a delivery framework for this template to work. It just needs to not be HDX.
Okay.
It's just for HDX that you have to select for. For regular APL, no.
Okay, so
there's two things in RealizeIt. Go ahead.
Because I just tried ingesting the sample, and like the pop-ups and stuff like that did not work. And so I assumed it was because
Can you share your screen?
Of course.
Yeah, can you share? Yeah.
Yep. Joanne, I'll stop sharing. And if you could share your screen and just bring up your template first.
Thanks, Anna. I figured this would be a good learning experience, so I totally shared your question.
Okay. So here, okay, share screen. And so do you guys see what happened when I ingested?
Yeah, can you go to your template first?
Okay. Let's see.
You have to click harder.
And now because I just got it and just downloaded, and it's like, where did it download to? Okay, so there it is.
Okay. Can you go back to the RealizeIt?
Okay.
Where the curriculum, so close out of that.
Okay.
And let's go back into, okay, so exit that. Okay, let's just select node topic 2 there real quick. Okay. And then click on that ingest button there, select the file.
Okay, and there's the ingest and sample.
And then at the bottom there, okay, so.
Well, right there, that needs to change.
It's not
in the drop down.
Yeah, so you want to do design doc standard there, yep. And there, yep, go ahead.
That's probably what did it.
So yeah, that's why it's so important. Like that's what Jen was saying, that the HDX template and the APL template, they're not interchangeable. So you do need to select the correct instructions.
Ah, that looks much better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, each one is tied to a specific instruction. So you do have to select the correct one.
Gotcha, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Anna. Anybody else like to share any issues you're having, or everybody else good?
Okay. Back to me. Okay, so one thing you can do here is also, so how does the system know this? So you can author, so once this is in, you can author within the system here as well. So you don't have to re-ingest if you don't want to. So if you notice that my learning did not have a background, and maybe I just want to add a background now. So I can go ahead and do that. If I go ahead and click on Learn here, and if I just go ahead and take an image, and just, I'm going to upload that same image that I had. Image. Your alternative text should be meaningful. Image there. If I go ahead and just right click here and do image properties, I could have just gone to the next step accidentally. Background here, you want to say true, and this will make it a background versus just an image for students to see. So now if I save, and so there's two preview buttons, just so you know. This previews everything, all the sections. If you click on this preview, it only previews the section that you have highlighted. And now my learning section has a image, a background image. So that's a way that you can simply add a background image if you forgot to add it in. So you can continue, you can edit here as well. You don't have to, if it's easier to correct the template and re-ingest, that's fine. Otherwise, you can definitely edit within the system as well.
And just a Herzing reminder, if you make changes in the system, make sure you're changing the legacy template too. So if you do it manually in the system, it's fine, but make sure you're also updating your template so we have the correct template version stored for our legacy documents.
Okay. One thing I also wanted to note is, so how do you know, so every time you create a file, a content file, it goes into a package. So in the content tab, so the system will automatically, every time you create a file, it goes into its package. It will, the system defaults at 20 files per package, and then it creates a new package. So as you continue to create your content, you're going to have multiple packages. How do you know where this file belongs to? Is if you highlight the node, if there was multiple packages, what you would see is an asterisk. So this is telling me that this file is in this package, okay? Also, if you ever need to delete a file, this is also a way. So if you accidentally ingest something and you don't want it, you don't like it, you just want to completely remove it from the node, you can. If you select the node, it tells you what package is in. If you go to edit, so this is the package details here. This will be a list of all your files. So if I wanted to go ahead and delete the file that was on the node executive department management sheets, I can go ahead and do that. So I click on this pen icon here, and then there is a delete button at the bottom. And then once I get out of there, I would have fully deleted that file.
You know, what'd be really cool is if there's some way you could print that file, because like you just heard Annie mention, we have legacy documents we maintain. So like if they ever decide they want to do an update on a course, is there any way to get a printable version?
We don't have that, but that is it has been a feature request in our authoring. So we're in the midst of enhancing our authoring side. So, and then we do have a list of things that, and that is one of them, to be able to print
Awesome.
the files that are attached to each node. So I do know that because I actually requested it. Any questions there? I just wanted to go ahead and introduce the authoring side, especially just the content ingestion, since you guys are so familiar with it. But then next, the next go around, we will get a little bit more into the authoring side and the different things that you can do, and different areas in authoring, all these different icons and what they do. Any questions?
Not for me, thanks. This was good.
Yeah, so Jen did provide you with those handouts. It does go through kind of the steps that I went through today. If you do have any questions, definitely let us know. We can clear up anything that you may have questions on. But for every training, you will get a document of everything that we were going through, so you guys have those as references.
Ooh, that's great.
Okay.
Great. And we're on again next week, I think. Just looking for where that was scheduled. Oh, no, because next week you guys are away, right? Harriet and Annie.
Right.
Next one's the 8th.
So it's not until the 8th. Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. So I'd say, you know, coming into the 8th, if you weren't following along today, you know, step by step on your side, that's fine. On the 8th, though, in order to move on to the next piece, you'll already want to have a curriculum hierarchy with some content in there. You know, a prerequisite network would be helpful. Just kind of what we went through today, so that we can pick it up from the next steps. And ultimately, we're moving toward, you know, showing you how to actually create a product and objectives and all that. And so you'll just need to have, you know, stuff in there. So if you weren't able to do that today, that's no problem. But between now and the 8th, if you could, and I will send out this recording when it's available.
Thank you. That